Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Travis Giffen, the Assistant Director of Online Programs. We have two graduates from the Diversity and Equity Program in EPOL, but at two different levels. We have Wendy Spencer, who is joining us, who graduated from the EDM program, the Education and Masters program, and then we have Dr. Sarah Yee, who graduated from the Education Doctoral program, who is joining us here. I have a quick poll for everybody here to let us know kind of who we have with us here tonight. So thank you all for joining us. Just want to let everyone know that this session is being recorded. The recording will get sent out about 12 hours afterwards to everybody who registered. So if you end up having to step away or miss something, the recording will be there available for you. And you can always reach out to us if you have any questions at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu. And with that, I'm going to give both of our guests a bit of time to introduce themselves. We will start with Dr. Sarah Yee.
Hi, everyone. Good to see some faces. My name is Dr. Sarah Yee. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an educator. I was a classroom educator, and now I educate other educators. So I live in the Portland, Oregon area. So I'm very much not in the Midwest anymore, but as I was telling Travis and Wendy, I actually grew up in Wisconsin. So I was born and raised in Milwaukee and went to school in Minnesota. And then when I decided to go back for my doctorate, also chose to be back in the Midwest, but not physically. So the only time I've been on the physical campus is actually when I went for my hooding ceremony and experienced Urbana-Champaign then. So yeah, do you want me to tell them about my current role yet, or are we going to go into that later? Okay, so I'm going to pass it to Wendy then.
All right. Hi, nice to see everybody. I am Wendy. I'll describe more specifics about my current role a little bit later, but I do live in Champaign now. I work as a program coordinator in Illinois International, and I'll kind of explain what that means and what I actually do when we get there. But before I did that, I was a high school English teacher for 4 years. And before I did that, I was a Peace Corps volunteer teaching English in China for 2 years. Also have never really left the Midwest. I'm from Wisconsin, went to UW Whitewater, taught in Wisconsin, and then now I live here, not very far from there.
Thank you both. And with that, we will move into the first part of our session here. So we have a few questions tied to student experience that we'll ask both the panelists, give them both a chance to answer that, and then we'll pause for some Q&A for folks if they have questions about what it's like to be a student in our online programs here at the College of Education. And then we will move into 2 questions that are career focused, and then allow everybody here to ask questions that are more career specific to both of our panelists. So with that, I'll move into the first question. So the first question that I have for you both, we'll go in the same order, is what were you doing before you started your program?
So before I started my program, I was actually a stay-at-home parent. I went from the classroom into full-time parenting because that's just what my family required at the time. And I always knew I wanted to go back into education. I knew that I wanted to get a terminal degree of some sort at some point because I never really pictured myself staying in the classroom until retirement. And at the same time, I wasn't really sure what that was going to look like. I had a real interest in DEI work, and so wanted to find some sort of avenue to be able to move into that and make some kind of career transition. So in the process, I moved myself actually into ed tech. I started remote working before remote working was a thing for a mainstream public, right? And so I was in ed tech working with alternative schools and how to manage their data, and got some more access to working directly with educators at that time.
Thank you.
All right, before I started my program, I was a high school English teacher, as I mentioned before, teaching mostly 9th grade, some 10th grade, sometimes 11th grade. English. What else do I want to say that doesn't go into the next question? I guess I was kind of looking for something. I wasn't intending to leave K-12 education at the time that I started the program. That is something that I kind of came to as opportunities arose during the program. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I got distracted. We can move on. I'm sorry.
Totally fine. So the next question we have is, why did you select the program that you graduated from?
So I've been watching and kind of seeing what new programs were popping up. I was really hoping to be in a program here more locally in Oregon. There's not a lot of EDD programs out there that were at the time that were not fully in-person cohort model. And while those were accessible here, they all felt like they were really geared towards somebody that wanted to move into administration or become a principal or a district leader of some sort. And that's not really what I was looking for. I wanted to see what could I do that wasn't just on a principal track, if you will. And so I noticed that UIUC had this pretty brand spanking new program. It was only about 2 years old when I entered in. And the fact that it had a specialty in diversity and equity in education, I did not see that anywhere else. Really, the only other one that I knew of that most people know of is Harvard's program. And let's be realistic. I wasn't sure that that was going to happen because they're very selective. And I think it's only a handful of people per year that get in and then they get paid for. And I just knew that wasn't the type of program I wanted to be in either, even though it is very much prestigious and all that. And so I wanted to also be connected to a public university that had like a brick and mortar school where I could go and get hooded and go through commencement. And it just kind of checked all of those boxes for me. And it was really affordable too.
Thank you. Wendy?
So I was still in the classroom when I started my program, and when I was looking for this program, I was looking for something that would help me be a more effective educator. At the time that I found this program, initially I was looking for more like professional development, shorter term type things for my district or for like my colleagues within my building. And soon ran into building would not, or the district wasn't going to cover those types of things. I was specifically looking for like diversity, equity, DEI type professional development. And there wasn't a budget for that. So I decided to give up on finding things within the district or for the district and looking for things for like personal professional development. So I decided I knew I was eventually going to want to get a master's anyway. So I started looking for diversity and equity focused master's programs. And I'm not sure what's out there, you know, a year and a half later, but at the time that I was looking, UIUC was the only place that had this specific program. Especially I was looking for something that would be online, something that would be flexible for a full-time working educator in the classroom, something that I could do alongside working. Most of the programs that I was finding elsewhere were that either didn't have the diversity and equity program, or they were leading towards, as Dr. Yee said, they were leading more towards administrative licensure, which is not something that I was looking at specifically, or they were like in person on the other side of the country. So the program that I really wanted to help me as an educator, UIUC was the only place that ticked all of my boxes as well. So I was so happy when I found that program.
Thank you both for sharing. And then the last question we have for this section is, what sort of advice would you give to either future students or even, you know, current students who may have just started their program?
I say don't think of the program as being completely online, like, oh, I can't get connected to people the same way, right? Even if you're not local to the state of Illinois, and I can speak from my experience that I'm still connected with people from my program, and those connections have helped me create other connections like across the country. And there's just so much power to that level of networking. I know we all view networking a little bit differently now, right? Post-pandemic world, we live in a virtual world where we're able to connect differently. And I really didn't expect to be in a fully online program and be as deeply connected to and feel such close friendship with people who I went through this program with. And then just being able to physically hug them and see them in person at commencement was so rewarding. But you just don't know how people are connected, because as you think about like where you eventually want to land and what kind of work you want to do eventually, that is really, really going to be a resource for you.
Yeah, I'd really like to echo what Dr. Yee just shared. I think connection was something that I struggled with a little bit more at the beginning because I wasn't sure how to navigate really connecting with peers when I didn't have the, chat with peers in the classroom once class ends, once that is removed. So I think I agree there is definitely those deep connections in an online program. You just have to be more intentional about seeking them out. For example, like Facebook groups, so you can chat with people outside of class, things like that, sharing, exchanging contact information, because I also have those deep connections. There's people that I've met through the online program that now I can see in person. And just to really echo that, I mean, I switched careers and moved to Champaign as a direct result of this program. I found the position because of an email from Travis that was announcing it, for example. So yeah, the community is here. You just have to be actively engaged in the process for seeking out and then engaging with that community.
Thank you both for answering those questions. We had a few folks that just joined us. Just wanted to let you both know and let everyone else know that the session is being recorded. Also, we're going to open for some Q&A. So while folks are thinking of questions here, this first Q&A is questions about the program. And then after those questions, we'll move into a few questions to the panelists about their careers, and then open up again for questions that are career related, and then open up generally for any other questions that folks might have. So to give a bit of context, both Dr. Sarah Yee and Wendy Spencer are graduates from the Education Policy Organization and Leadership Program in the Concentration, Diversity, and Equity in Education. Dr. Sarah Yee graduated from the EDD program, and Wendy graduated from the EDM program. So just wanted to make sure that everybody had that context. And now feel free to either raise your hand and unmute yourself when called on and ask your question, or you can type your question in the chat and I'm happy to read your question out for you.
I can ask a question. My
Yeah,
question
please.
is, you touch upon a particular class or something that kind of still resonates with you within your workplace. That's something like one of those classes that kind of pops up in your mind that you kind of remember or kind of engage with, that kind of, support you through your everyday work experiences.
Thank you for that question.
So I took this class from, and I forget the title, but I think it had professional development in the title. And it was taught by Dr. Asia Fuller Hamilton, who I don't know if she's at the university anymore, but Travis could probably answer that question. It was one of the more practical courses that were less theoretical, and that is probably because Professor Fuller Hamilton is an administrator herself. And it gave a lot of projects that were group-based, but then also individual-based, where you were actually supposed to take like what you would do, whether it be in your classroom or in your education environment, and put something into place. Like, imagine what you would do here and how would you implement it when it comes to professional development. And there were things that I was able to create in that course where I was basically like prototyping something, right, and testing it out, bringing it to districts that I was actually just volunteering my time with. And I've now seen that some of those things are still being used. So being able to like use it as a way to try something out and really apply like the diversity and equity piece to it, and then see it in action, or to have it tangibly able to like use and try out as soon as you find whatever new career it is. Like that course really stuck out to me.
Course that really stands out to me was, I don't remember the exact course name. Sorry, I was like pulling out my old notes that I still have next to me trying to remember the course. But it was Diversity and Pedagogy with Dr. Willis, which really stood out to me. I really liked the way she structured the class, which was very flexible. She would always have a variety of different types of assignments or activities that could either align with like interests that you specifically have, or a specific field or a specific type of work. Or she would also do the opposite. Some weeks she would tell you like, choose something that is different from what you typically look at, or choose something that is different from your current area of expertise or where you're currently comfortable with, to kind of broaden those horizons and look at things in a different way. And I really liked that there were multiple different things that she would have us do to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones, as well as to keep us kind of centered into what we really wanted to focus on. Oh yeah, EPL 590. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah. Easily, I just really like the way that the class was structured and how we had the opportunity to apply things directly into our field of work. For me at the time, it was I could directly pull an assignment and then the next day apply it to my work in the classroom or my work with my colleagues. There were a lot of like assignments that I made that I would then go on and share with my administration or share with my colleagues then, that could kind of really get the ball rolling in my district with the DEI kind of work that I wanted to go into. That was why I joined the program to begin with.
Thank you both.
Thank you for the question. Thanks for everybody that's put questions in the chat. We'll should be able to get through them all. I'm gonna move to the next question we have. I'm going to offer it up to both of our panelists, but we also have Brianna Davis, online student advisor here, who might have some good answers for this question also. So the question that we have here is, are classes offered at a variety of times, or are they usually offered during the day?
Mine were all offered typically, like for me, keep in mind, I'm on the West Coast, right? So the time difference, it would be like a 4 to 6 or 5 to 7 on my time. So I'd imagine that's more like right after school hours. So like a 3 to 5 in central time. And so that actually worked out really nicely with my work day. And I think that it seemed to be geared towards educators who are working full-time, or professionals working full-time.
So for me, living in Central Time, the earliest class that I had was actually a 4 to 6, I think. Most of my classes were anywhere from typically like 5:36 through, I think the latest a class for me would end was 9 p.m. A lot of them would be like 7 or 6 to 8-ish was, I think, the most common class time for me. So it was usually weekday evenings.
Yeah, and just to kind of echo what you both have said, our current course schedule kind of aligns with what you've experienced as well. So typically courses will meet one evening per week. Most of our courses are offered during the evening hours. They'll typically meet for 2, maybe 3 hours at a time. And our earliest would be 4 p.m. And then they would run through, as Wendy said, 9 o'clock. So you might have a course from 4 to 6 or 5 to 7, 7 to 9, something like that. So yes, that our current schedule aligns with what you both have experienced as well.
I also want to add, for those of you who are on the call who may be parents, I am a parent of 2 children. My children were much younger when I was going through the program. And so it was a balancing act. And because it was offered later in the evening, they were typically either like getting ready for bed or real close to that. So as a parent, it is very manageable.
Also, I have a good follow-up question that we have that gets asked sometimes. So one of the things that's kind of unique about our program is we have our semesters are broken into part of term, so part of term A and part of term D. So instead of courses being offered 16 weeks, they're offered 8 weeks at a time, and then there's an opportunity to take another course during 8 weeks. Could both of you share about how your experiences were with the part of term cycle?
Yeah, that was huge when I was looking at which program to go with, because you get to just focus on one course at a time. And while 8 weeks actually goes by very quickly, and at first it feels like the speed is, whoa, how am I going to get all of this done in 8 weeks? You kind of get used to that rhythm. And I just so appreciated being able to like not have to balance multiple topics of learning at one time. And being able to like really hone in and get concentrated time with those people and with whatever it is, like the content you're learning.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The 8-week courses were a lifesaver in terms of time management for the same reasons that Dr. Yee just shared. I could really focus on just one class at a time for the 8 weeks, really engage with the material, and being able to set up a schedule that worked for me so that I could have like the time on the weekends, for example, to work on the assignments for one course. And then switch over in the next 8 weeks and be able to focus on a different course. The time management for that was so much easier because of the 8-week setup.
Thank you both for sharing. I just know that's a unique aspect with our programs, and maybe not everybody's aware of that, but yeah, we get a lot of people that will just take, one course each of the 8 weeks. It still allows them to get 2 courses in a semester. Our courses also are 4 credit hours a piece, opposed to 3 credit hours a piece, which I know is common in some other programs, especially for undergraduate programs. If you're looking at, the master's program. So when you take 2 courses each and they're both 4 hours each, that ends up being 8 credit hours a semester. So for folks that maybe had questions about that. So we got another question here, and I think this actually works really well, and there's a transition kind of into the career aspect here. But we had a question, wanted to give both of you an opportunity to talk on this. So it's somebody who just submitted their application in the concentration, diversity, and equity with states that are, maybe cutting funding and different things like that in diversity and equity. It's not happening in Illinois. There are another number of other states that aren't doing it, but just didn't know if either of you had thoughts on that, if somebody should be concerned or not concerned, on maybe what your thoughts are and what you're seeing.
I got thoughts on the cutting of funding. Um, My thoughts regarding if you should change your specialty or not. Here's what I'm going to say. You're going to always be butting up against something when it comes to DEI work. That is what you are walking into. And you really have to ask yourself, am I ready to deal with this as a constant battle? Because it's not going to be just funding, right? Like it's just funding, and it's people's mindsets, and it's the system that is not broken, right? And. So the question is that something you are really, really deeply passionate about and you want to be the driver of some level of change in your spaces? Or are you not, like, you're just interested and actually you want to put your work elsewhere, which is completely okay, right? That's not to say that you are not going to be an advocate for diversity and equity. That just may not be where you want to take your fight, right? But know that is going to always be a fight when it comes to DEI work. Finances are one of the challenges, but I would also say that the states where they're losing funding, there are always going to be people too that are looking for other ways to do it, right? There's going to be people who are going to, oh, you've stepped in my path, I'm going to find a different path, right? And so I have friends in other states who the word equity has been banned. And then they're like, cool, we'll call it something else, or we'll use some other terminology, right? So your work then shifts to, how do I do this differently? And I think it's less so a question of like, do I change that because there's not going to be funding for it and therefore there may not be jobs? Or do you look elsewhere, right? We do live in a very virtual world now. Your work doesn't necessarily have to be in your state.
I would just like to add on to that. I think regardless of whatever you do or wherever you go, if you stay in the same career, if you go somewhere else, DEI can always be a part of anything that you're doing. And I'm even thinking back to the variety of people that I was taking classes with in my program. I would say the majority of people were K-12 classroom teachers, but that didn't describe everybody. We had some people in higher ed, we had some people in administration, we had what surprised me was there were a lot of people from the corporate world that were in. I don't know necessarily which program that they were in, but they were in the same classes as me. So I think you can take anything that you're doing in the diversity and equity program, and you can take that and apply that same work to any position, any field, anything that you're doing. So I would say it's absolutely still worthwhile.
Thank you both. I'm going to move into the next portion of questions for both of you, and then we'll open up for Q&A for more career-related questions. And if we have time, we can circle back to get any other questions that folks asked. So we'll swap the order this time. We'll have Wendy answer first, and then Dr. Yi answer second. So first question here is, could you please share a bit about more about what you're doing currently in your career? What's your position? What's kind of your focus and responsibilities right now?
Okay, so as I said earlier, I work at the U of I. I'm currently in Champaign. My team is global education and training, and collectively we work with a lot of international scholars, international professionals who come to the campus. We kind of think of ourselves as a gateway to the U of I. So there are other pathways for international students that want to come to the university for degree seeking programs. My team deals specifically with international scholars who are not necessarily seeking a degree from the U of I, but they do still want to access all of the resources, all of the knowledge, all of the experts that we have here. So sometimes that looks like people coming abroad to work on their like English proficiency before they study at other universities, for example, or sometimes that looks like mid-career professionals in any field, like banking, for example. They want to come to the university for like a 2-week program to study something. We have some of the best professionals out there in the world for various fields. My team kind of helps facilitate that. So what my role specifically looks like within that team is doing kind of a lot of the behind the scenes work, scheduling, things like that. A lot of what I do day to day really looks like a teacher's prep period, but all day. And then I outsource the actual instruction to the professionals around campus.
Thank you, Wendy.
So as any educator will tell you, I wear multiple hats. Right now, I'm wearing 2 hats professionally, one in the public sector here within a pre-K to 12 system, where I work for an organization that is funded by the state. So in the state of Oregon, and this is unique to Oregon, there was legislation written to create these regional educator networks. And what we serve to do is we work with educational service districts, and we serve the districts in a way to diversify, recruit, retain, and support educators of color very specifically. And that's because our average of white teachers here and white educators in general is higher than the national average. And so we're really trying to push efforts into diversifying that staff. And then what do we do to retain that staff? So I'm an equity facilitator here at the Multnomah Clackamas Regional Educator Network. And I support educators in their professional development through affinity groups, through specific leadership building and capacity building for them personally and professionally. And then I get to work with 18 school districts and 2 ESDs in this area and serve all the educators in this network. My other hat, which is my private corporate hat, if you will, I work for a small startup here in Portland, Oregon, we're less than 10 years old. We're called the Center for Equity and Inclusion. And it's a consultancy that does DEI work with corporations, nonprofits, and then education as well. And I work on their education team on something called the Equity Certificate Program. which we offer to educators as a graduate level course, that they get to engage in different PD that is not offered through their districts.
Thank you both for sharing. Next question I have here for both of you is what's a piece of advice that you would give to somebody if they're looking at moving into your field or doing work similar to you?
Best advice for me. So I, like I said, I came into this position from the program, not initially expecting to leave K-12 education. So I think the best advice I can give is to not be afraid to do something new or try something different or move to a new place, for example. I had expected to stay in education when I started the program, and was passively thinking about getting into higher education, but I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. The EDM program was kind of a transitional period for me, where I kind of started thinking more about higher education. So I decided, I guess, to just take a leap. I saw the information about the position, and with the background that I already had with working with internationals and working abroad and things like that, I really wanted to try something different. So I guess the advice again that I have is don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to try something new, because you never know what opportunities might land your way. And that's coming from me, where previously I had definitely thought of myself as kind of person who settles and digs deep roots and doesn't try new things or doesn't do anything different. I think the program really helped me to get more comfortable with it, broadening my horizons and doing different things and taking risks and trying new things. So take advantage of any opportunities that come your way, for sure.
Thank you, Wendy.
My advice would be, and this is coming from the lens of somebody who went through an EDD versus a PhD, and keeping in mind that as you're going through this, for some of us like who hadn't been in school in a long time, right? A lot of things are going to feel very academic. Things are going to feel very theoretical in a lot of ways. And so I think always have in the back of your mind, what do I want to do with this eventually when I apply it? In a career, in a job, in a practical sense, because all the learning that you're going to get out of this program is all applicable, right? But sometimes it's not presented in that way, and you have to do that processing of like, okay, here's the theory, here's the higher ed academic version, and how can I take that into these spaces that where I actually have to conceptualize it, where it actually has to be operationalized in a way that is practical and tangible for the folks that I'll be having impact on.
Thank you both for answering that. So with that, we'll open for Q&A, try and get some career related questions here to both of you. But we also, while folks are thinking about that, we did get one specific question here for Dr. Sarah Yee. Could you share a little bit about the dissertation journey with those here?
Dissertation journey. So it was, for me, the dissertation journey happened during the pandemic. So I had some additional challenges while I was already an online student, and none of that really changed. I had some additional challenges of finding people who I could do my research with, because people were overloaded and didn't have room on their plates to have even short conversations with me. So that made it a little bit extra challenging. I would say that the advice that Wendy shared earlier about like finding Facebook groups or any kind of social event that even the UIUC puts on, that I know there are like virtual hangouts and things like that too. Find those places, because during that dissertation journey is where you're going to need that. You're not going to be in class with people on a regular basis like you had been the first 2 years in the program when you're writing your dissertation. You're kind of on your own for a while, and you really have to lean in on where are those relationships that you already formed in the first 2 years. utilize the writing center. Oh my goodness, they're incredible. I utilized that so much, and I use that as a way to keep myself accountable to writing. So I would make appointments with the writing coaches and just say, hey, I'm going to have this much done for you. And I would love for you to read this next week with me and look for these specific things, even if it was just one more page, because accountability is really, really crucial during that dissertation writing time when you are not checking in a course of any sort, right? You will check in with your advisor on a pretty regular basis. But other than that, you're on your own for your research and your writing. And so find those places at the university that like are there for you to use and to seek out those relationships so that you don't feel like you're on your own and end up dragging that process out longer than you want it to.
Thank you. Again, if folks have any questions that are career related, feel free to raise your hand in Zoom and you can unmute yourself and ask those or type them in the chat. Okay. So a question that we have for both of you, we have time, both of you can answer this question. Be curious if you had any classmates in your cohort that were interested in social emotional learning and mental health in schools in their career.
I can field that one. I would say a lot of my courses, the assignments specifically would have kind of general prompts that gave us kind of the freedom and flexibility to zone in on a topic that we were particularly interested in. So for example, I'm trying to think of specific assignments, but they're kind of escaping me. But I know one of the courses, one of them, I know I was looking into social emotional learning specifically. I can't remember exactly what I was looking at anymore. And I know that these topics, SEL, mental health, were brought into the discussion constantly during like in-class discussions and things like that. So a lot of these specific topics for like papers, for example, we really could go in the direction that we wanted to go in, and like looking at social emotional learning was a frequent path that a lot of like myself and a lot of peers in my cohort were looking into.
Thank you.
I would say that I don't remember off the top of my head many of my cohort members being interested in SEL or mental health. And I want to recognize that like that there has been a big shift, right, in recognizing that in education right now. And rightfully so. I mean, honestly, it should have been important even beforehand. But what I think I noticed is like most of my classmates were either going to be moving into some level of administration or district leadership, because at that time it was more like, oh, DEI roles are becoming a thing. And so like, how can we be leaders in those roles? Versus I think we had less folks that were typically counselors before. I think we had more folks who were either in the classroom or were some sort of teacher support, like a coach or things like that.
Thank you both. Any other questions? While folks are thinking of things, one question maybe I have for both of you, is there any project or anything like that that you've had or looking forward to potentially coming up on the horizon that you're looking forward to working on, or something that you're passionate about in your current positions?
Sure, I can share a current project. So right now my team is working on developing what we're calling a foundation year at Illinois. So we're looking at having a specific program for international students who are looking to start either a bachelor program or a master's program, but they either don't feel confident in their language proficiency to study in the US, or they don't feel prepared for what university life looks like in the US. So they would come to my team at Global Education and Training, and we would have English, like ESL type classes for them, as well as like university prep type classes, test prep classes. Um, we would help them talk about things like stress and anxiety and just general university life, things like that, to help them prepare to study either at the U of I if they wanted to apply to this school, or if they're looking at joining other universities around the US. And we would also help them throughout the college application process, talking about college essays, things like that. So we're hoping we have a few applications in for that program, and we're hoping to really launch it this summer. So that's something that I'm really excited about.
So actually an event that I was just holding today and had to step out of for this is through my organization, I told you, has provided PD to teachers and what they're needing. And we don't just provide PD for teachers, we provide PD for really at every level. And so we started something called the DEIB Leadership Network, and it's to support educators who are leading equity in some way, shape, or form in their spaces. Sometimes that can be like the DEI person at the district. Sometimes they are teachers on special assignment. But we wanted a way to bring them all together so that we can look at problems of practice together, be able to create a network in and of itself, just so we know that those roles are very, very isolating. And so how can we be a collective versus just one DEI person in a district who holds an immense amount of weight on their shoulders? And what is it that you may be needing as support? So that's exciting to be able to bring all these leaders from across districts together to do that work together, and just to be like a place to breathe, right? And a place to rest from the work that you're doing at your district.
Thank you both for answering. We got one question here. I'm going to ask it kind of two ways for both of you. So we had a question that's asking here: would the program be difficult or maybe not well suited for someone who is a recent college graduate, so at the level below? So for Wendy, if somebody is just finishing up their bachelor's program and they're looking at starting the program, what are your thoughts on that? And then for Dr. Siri, if somebody is just finishing up their master's program and we're looking at the EDD program next, what are your thoughts on that? We'll start with Wendy.
So the goal of this program is actually to make international education more accessible to all students from anywhere in the world. So we're looking at having a program that is as affordable as possible, and also that is accessible to students that don't necessarily have like the top test scores or something like that, because currently it's very easy for students who come from very wealthy backgrounds, or they have like very good test scores, very good grades, to be able to access education in the United States, to travel to the United States to study. And our program, we're developing it so that any student theoretically would be able to come and apply and get assistance to apply to any university in the United States. So we're not necessarily looking for like the top students from around the world. We're trying to make American education more accessible so that they want to come travel to the US, but they're not confident in their English proficiency, or they're not confident in their ability to succeed at a university because of their previous academic history, or because of like their general anxieties about being abroad. The whole idea behind that is that we would help them through that process. So we don't have, for example, like a minimum language requirement. We don't have like SAT equivalent type test scores. We want them to any student to be able to apply to our program, and then we help them get ready so that they will be able to succeed after they get here. So I would say the program is really suitable for anyone. If they're a recent college grad, if they're a recent high school grad that's looking to get into college for the first time, if they have a limited background in education, or if they don't necessarily have like a high level of academic success, whatever that might mean to you, they'll come, and then we'll help get them ready for whatever they want to do next.
Wendy, I just want to clarify. I think I was trying to ask a question about.
Oh.
I think you were talking about the program that you're working on here at the university. I think the
Oh,
person's
were they
question
talking about?
was
Oh, I thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. Okay, so would the EDM program be difficult? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I don't think it's going to be. It's difficult. I would say a lot of people in my program were recent college grad, like they had very recently finished their bachelor's degree and then they just went right into the master's. I was, I think, 4 years out from my bachelor's when I started, so like not a significant amount of time had passed. I think there's a lot of support that is available to help people through the process throughout the program. I never really got to the point where I personally felt overwhelmed or lost. I always knew that there was a variety of people I could reach out to, either formally like an advisor, or as well as kind of my self-formed community that I could reach out to and ask questions and get kind of more like conversational help or help from peers as well. Thank you for clarifying that, Travis.
Yeah, no problem. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted to clarify that for everybody on the call. So you kind of got two perspectives there, a little bit about the program she's working in, and then a little bit about our EDM program here at the university. I'm going to frame the question a little differently for Dr. Sarah. So what would your perspectives be if somebody was just finishing up their master's level program and were looking at the EDD program? What would your insights or feedback be or input be for that individual?
Yeah, I think that if you have just finished a master's program, and maybe you've had some years of teaching or just professional work under your belt, then I would say that the EDD program is completely accessible. I don't know about difficulty, right? Like it's more when it comes to the difficulty, I do wonder, it's more like how long has it been since you've been in school, right? Because I started when I was 36. So it had been a while because I did my undergrad and grad right afterwards. So it'd been a while since I'd been in school, at least 10 years. And so for me, it was a retraining of my brain to be able to be in student mode again, and higher ed student mode at that. And so that took some time, but I would say that if you're already in that student mode, there is that positive to it and the advantage there. But I think that if it really depends on what you're like, if you ended up going through an EDD program, what are you looking to do after that? Because if you think you need some more experience to jump into whatever career change it may be at that point, then I think it's less so about the difficulty or like applicable things in the program. It's more about like, will this degree actually help me in my career transition, or will I need a degree for the content and knowledge and understanding plus the experience, right? So I think it varies depending on where you're really wanting to take it.
Thank you both for answering. While folks are thinking of any other questions, only because we got 10 minutes here to the hour, just want to get some feedback from everybody in case anybody has to leave early. Thank you for filling out the poll. And again, as a reminder, the session is being recorded and will get sent out to everybody about 12 hours afterwards. So if you joined late or had to step away or missed anything, you will have the recording will get emailed out to you to the email address that you used to register for the Zoom session today. And again, if you have any questions you think of afterwards about our programs, or anything like that, you can reach us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu. And we will be happy to answer any of your questions. We know that we have a application deadline coming up on April 15th for the EDD program for fall and for summer term A for the EDM program. And then the next deadline for the EDM program coming up is May 15th for summer term B. So if you're interested in starting those programs, those are some important dates for everybody.
Hi, would it be okay to go back to a question that's related to the coursework?
Yeah, absolutely. We have the time.
Awesome. I would love to know, I'm interested in the master's program, and I'm seeing that there is an option for electives with an advisor approval. And I see that there are some suggestions already listed there, but I'm wondering if either of you had experience choosing other courses that were not already listed here, and what sort of options might be available to sort of seek out coursework that really speaks to where you are professionally and what you would hope to get out of the program.
Thanks for the question. I'll get both of our panelists, if either of you had experience doing any of that, to share your individual experiences. If not, I'll let Brianna Davis jump in. She can give some insights from the student advisor perspective.
I can share a little bit about my experience. I don't recall necessarily specifically looking at the list of like suggested electives when I was making my choice or my class elections. I really was just looking at what courses were open, and then out of like what was open each term, I would just select courses that spoke to my interests or that hit whatever requirements that I needed. So as far as electives went, I guess I didn't really think very deeply about what the suggested electives were, and I never really ran into any issues there. I don't know that really necessarily answers the question, though.
I'll let Brianna answer this since it's more specific to the master's.
Sure, I'm happy to help with this. So generally speaking, there's a lot of flexibility when choosing elective courses. If you look on the plan of study for our different concentrations, you will see that suggested list of elective courses that generally align directly with that concentration. But we understand that, people have really unique research interests, and there's certainly some crossover between research interests. For example, if you are interested in diversity and equity from maybe an international student perspective, and you have interest in some of those maybe global studies oriented elective courses and things like that. So we want to make those courses certainly available to students. So like I said, there's a lot of flexibility there. When we say that we encourage you to reach out to your faculty advisor for approval to take those elective courses, that's largely because your faculty advisor is going to be able to give you more insight about the content of those courses. So if you're kind of exploring different courses that are maybe not on the suggested list, and you've got a very specific research topic in mind, or you have very specific research interests, talking to your faculty advisor is really going to be the best way to kind of better narrow down the courses that will specifically focus on those interests. So that's kind of what we mean by advisor approval. It's more or less, encouraging you to engage in a conversation with your faculty advisor, so that way you understand a little bit more deeply what the content of that course will be. But generally speaking, really any of our graduate level courses that are offered in the College of Education to students in online programs, are certainly worth exploring. So if you have questions, or if you're looking at the course schedule for upcoming terms and you're seeing some courses that maybe you're interested in that don't fall on that suggested electives list, I certainly encourage you to reach out to your faculty advisor just to engage in a conversation. Chances are, again, if it's offered to students in online programs, you're going to get the thumbs up to be able to take that course. For everybody's reference, I have posted a link to our fall course schedule. From that link, you can also view our summer course schedule, but it's our fall course schedule for our education policy, organization, and leadership courses. So if you were curious as to which electives might be available to you as an option. Again, you're going to be looking for 400 and 500 level courses. And again, I encourage you to just engage in a conversation with your faculty advisors so that way you can get a little bit more information about each individual course.
Thank you so much. Very helpful.
Thanks for the question. Thanks for the input, Wendy, and thanks for all of the additional information, Brianna. Any other questions from folks? To do a last call if anybody has any questions. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us, no matter what time it is for you. Thank you to both of our panelists. Thank you to all of those who are watching this recording back later. We appreciate your interest in online programs and participating in our online student information session and panel that we have here this evening for everyone. All right, looks like that's it for questions. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, everyone. Brianna did put her email in the chat. Any prospective students, if you have any questions, you can reach her at bmdavis2@illinois.edu. And with that, wish you all a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. Take care.